Hello everyone, this is Dajiang. Recently, I worked with my group member Sihui Wang about this project, Successful Road for Olive Garden Restaurant. We did analysis on Olive Garden database, and now we are glad to introduce our findings to you. So for this presentation, our agenda is as following. First, we are going to introduce our convo, and based on that, we will give our framed question, and then solutions and the process we deal with the data. And the following is 6 arguments we've got, and finally, we will give our conclusion. First, some introduction about Olive Garden. Olive Garden is a restaurant brand that is owned and operated by Darton Restaurant. In 2008, Darton reported that some store sales has increased for Olive Garden for 55 consecutive quarters. However, in 2009, same-store sales declined and the Olive Garden brand has had continuous erosion since then. So, our need is to figure out what's the reason for this phenomenon, and we are going to uncover driving factors that can impact the sales and the performance of the restaurant and explain the reason. We think this report can not only help Olive Garden to improve their current business, but also when Olive Garden consider to opening the to open new restaurant, this report can also help them. So basically, the result of our analysis will be reported to CEO and the COO. The CEO will be able to adjust their strategies, and the COO will be able to adjust the customer experience improvement. Basically, we have 6 framed questions based on the convo analysis. So first, we're going to analyze the correlation between competitors and Olive Garden. And secondly, we are going to figure out whether there is correlation existing between weather, social, economic, and health conscious related variables between the performance of the restaurants. To meet the needs stated above, first we will get a list of variables which are the drivers that impact the performance of Olive Garden restaurant. After determining the metrics to measure the performance of a store, I will be able to put them into different categories and do analysis by categories. Then, a correlation analysis between demographic factors and performance will be conducted combined with techniques such as multivariable linear regression. We can also get some visual conclusion from the process. Then we will build linear regression models in which performance trend index as dependent variables which with various correlated demographic features as independent factors. With the linear regression model, we will be able to draw predictive conclusion and make strategic suggestion to Olive Garden restaurant. These are our conclusion and recommendation based on our analysis on the report. The main conclusion is that there are statistical relationship between a restaurant performance with main demographic characteristics such as competitors. And our recommendations is separated into 5 aspects. First, Building stores in vicinity of the Cheesecake Factory near areas is a recommendation. Secondly, more Black community, bigger average household size, and more people insured in an area are better for Olive Garden performance. And finally, more people if they work nearby their home, and more agricultural forestry in this area is also good for Olive Garden's performance. As shown below, this is our process, how we come to our result. When we get the data, which is Olive Garden restaurant performance data Excel, there are 120 variables in total. So, as indicated in the reading materials, we choose the dependent one, performance trend index of Olive Garden as dependent variables. To pick out the variables which are related to friend question above, we did the following data processing. First, we deleted variables which conclude missing data. And secondly, we conducted a correlation coefficient of each variable using performance trend index of Olive Garden as the dependent variable. After running the multivariate and the correlation, we find out the variables that are more related to the dependent 1 and dependent 2. And after data cleaning, we have 77 variables at last. Here comes our first argument. Are there correlations between competitors and the performance of the restaurant? And what are the most competitive competitors for Olive Garden restaurant? After we use the multivariate and correlation to clean the data, we run fit model to select competitive competitors. We found out that the R-square is about 5%, so competitors are a driving factor. Also, we can state that Chipotle, Cracker Barrel, and the Cheesecake Factory are significant because their p-value is less than 5%. So we select these three competitors and rebuild a fit model. Because we have our second argument. If correlation exists, how do competitors in an area influence the performance of restaurant? So we get the predictive model, which is as following. Based on the predictive model, we can make three conclusions. First, there is a correlation between competitors and the performance of restaurant. And secondly, the more Chipotle and the Cracker Barrel are in the vicinity of Olive Garden restaurant, the higher the performance trend index Olive Garden restaurant will have. And the more the Cheesecake Factory is in a vicinity of Olive Garden restaurant, the less performance trend index Olive Garden restaurant will have. Thirdly, the Cheesecake Factory is the Olive Garden restaurant most competitive competitors. And here comes our third argument. We want to figure out if there is correlation between the weather-related variables and the performance of restaurant. After we run the model, we can say that the weather is not a driving factor since the R-square is below 5%. But there are some variables that are significant because their p-value is lower than, is very low. So we select out this p-value, which is for the frequency of thunderstorm, frequency of days with temperature that is lower than 0F, and frequency of fog. And we we can state that the more thunderstorm and temperature is less than 0 F, the higher performance trend index restaurant will have. And the more frequency of a fog, the less performance trend index restaurant will have. Then it comes to the question is that if there is correlation between social related variables and performance, we use the same way to figure out that, but in this part, we separate the social related variables into three parts. The first part is demographic, which is about the residents' age and the residents' race. And the second part is the household size. It's the variables about household size for the resident in the vicinity. And the last one is the education level. However, for all three parts, the R-square are lower than 5%, so we can state that social is not a driving factor. However, there are also some significance variables, which is the percent of black population and the average household size. And these two variables have positive correlation with performance. And our fifth argument is that if there is correlation between economic and performance. We also did that in the same way as before. In economic related variables can separate into three parts, which is industry environment, the income status, and employment situations. And R square for these three parts are all smaller than 5%. And there are also some significant variables which are agricultural, forestry, and percent uninsured people. And these two variables, they have positive correlations with the performance of Olive Garden restaurant. However, people work outside has negative correlation with Olive Garden performance. And our final argument is what is the relationship between locating in the vicinity of communities that are health conscious with the performance of a restaurant? We also use the fit model and find out the R square is lower than 5%. And also there are no significant variables. The p-value are all very high. So we think that health conscious is not a driving factor to the performance of Olive Garden. We should not consider it as when we choosing store location. Here comes our conclusion. As stated before, location of stores should not be in the vicinity of the Cheesecake Factory, but can be in the vicinity of Chipotle and Cracker Bakery. Barrier because these two competitors are not the main competitors to Olive Garden. And then whether social and economic related variables are all not driving factors for Olive Garden, but we can still recommend Olive Garden when they choosing new location. They should locate their new store in the area that has more black population and birth rate, and also with more agricultural forestry and more uninsured populations. And also people living there are more likely to work nearby their home. Thank you. This is all our presentation, and we hope our report help Olive Garden to get a better performance in the future and improve their customer experience.